His name has got me.
Yeah, Gomer, yeah.
I've never heard anyone ever called Gomer. Is that Welsh?
I don't know. I didn't really inquire. Everybody just knew him as Gomer.
That got to be a nickname.
No, I think it was his name.
Are we recording, Mark? Welcome along, folks. Wisdom on Tap. Mr. Matt Wilks with us today. Matt, I'm trying to think how I met you. I always like to start with how I met somebody.
How did you meet me? I think I came out of Dave Watson's program, and
That was it, yeah.
yeah, and then I wanted to learn a bit more about the things that Dave was talking about that he'd learned from you,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much how I thought.
That's why you sought me out.
Yeah.
Well, I've sought you out to come on Wisdom on Tap because... Sorry, Mark, I'm moving the microphone. Because we had a chat, didn't we, about a month ago, and you've been with us for about a year. And I was like, bloody hell, mate, you have done so much. You've come so far. You've been through so much. That's a story worth sharing. I thought this is going to be inspirational for someone, motivational. In fact, we've got the same sense of humor. It's probably going to just be a good crack and a good bit of fun.
hope so.
We left all the good jokes in the coffee shop, though, didn't we?
Absolutely.
I've got nothing left to say to you. We should have recorded that. Thing is, though, I'm just going to come straight out of it. You had a stroke, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Yeah, about 3 years ago now.
3 years ago.
Yeah, well, December of 21, well, whatever that is in real money.
I remember walking around Bristol.
Clevedon, near Clevedon,
We're
near
walking
Bristol.
around Clevedon, 24-hour walk.
Yeah,
I did about 4 of those 24 hours, but
yeah. So
I'm a
when
morale officer, I was.
yeah, so when I had my stroke, it was I was in hospital for a couple of weeks and came out, and then I was obviously in the Limitless program with Dave, and he decided to do something stupid to raise some money for me because he knew I was in trouble, and he organised a 24-hour walk. And so him and a bunch of Limitless lads who are my brothers in arms and always will be, walked for 24 hours around the picturesque town of Clevedon. I think they originally planned to do it off road, but it turned out to be walking around B roads of Clevedon, which
yeah. I remember coming, I was like, we're just doing loops now, aren't we? Loops around Asda.
it's not even that big a place. So to make 24 hours of a walk is quite something.
Yeah, it sums Dave up though, I tell you, what a good bloke.
Yeah.
Just to go in
he
and
was my hero for many years.
Do smile. So you've done so many things, right? I was trying to list. Well, you're all serious now, but you've done so many things. You were like, so when I was with British bobsleigh, I'm like, all right, you did that.
Yeah.
When I was in the RAF,
Yeah.
when I was skiing in the RAF, so oh my God, you have done so much stuff. But I wanted to just focus in on this stroke thing because watching you overcome that. What would you say? Overcome?
I don't think you ever overcome a stroke. That's maybe not quite the right word. I would say you have to adapt to it first.
Yeah.
Once you've adapted to it, then you've got to try and find ways to overcome the challenges that it brings you. So
you've recovered. I know you're not fully recovered, but you're in recovery. I'm trying to think of a word.
It's a bit like any kind of disabling thing. You can have a stroke and have no visible effects, or you can have a stroke and be completely catatonic and unable to move and live your life. And so I was extremely lucky in that I faced some disability. My left side was quite badly affected.
I remember you could barely use your left hand.
Yeah, my left hand kind of stopped working for a period of time, about 2-3 weeks, and then I managed to get some movement back into it. My left leg was affected. My left side of my face was affected, but fairly minimally. I kind of had a bit of a slurry speech for a bit. So I was pretty lucky, really.
What caused your stroke?
So the base root cause was high blood pressure, which had been not mismanaged, but it had been missed as a problem through COVID, because through COVID, all of my health checkups that I would normally have had were kind of cancelled or delayed.
Yeah.
And so I didn't ever really understand that my blood pressure was going through the roof. No one really understands why it did it.
So there was no stress outside? I mean, there probably was.
No, there was a lot of stress at that time. I was rebuilding my house. I was running a project at work, which was pretty full on.
That we probably can't talk about.
No, that's all sneaky beaky stuff.
Cut that bit of the story out.
You can cut that out. I've got to kill you now.
What we should do is stop this and then restart it, and Mark just put 5 minutes later on the video.
5
so people don't know what's happened.
Later.
But I know. And Mark knows.
I'll tell you later.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was I was stressed at work, and I was running a program on my own from home, which had never been done before in that company. I had my house in bits. At one point, we had no kitchen. It was.
Yeah, you had a lot going on.
Yeah, it was. I took on far too much in one go.
Doesn't sound like you, Matt.
No, I'm very.
I've
relaxed.
never known you to take on all the things all the time. That's the little running joke between me and you, isn't it?
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
what's going on now? Well, I'm doing this. I've got this. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Where were you when you had your stroke?
I was actually in work. So in brief, the way it worked was I went to work on the Wednesday, and I was sort of feeling a bit poorly. I had like what I'd call the flu, and I was a contractor, so I couldn't really say no to the money. So I had to kind of keep going in, and I was fairly new to the company. And so I went home on the Wednesday evening. I was feeling pretty ropey. Thursday, I went back into the office, and there's a lady who I was working with who was ever so compassionate, really lovely lady. And she looked at me and she said, "Matt, you do not look right. I'm worried about you." And I thought, okay, yeah, I don't feel particularly good. I had a real problem that day. I couldn't log into my laptop, which needed Control Alt Delete. So of course you use the left hand for Control and Alt and your right hand for delete. I didn't realize I was having a stroke. So that's how it started.
You couldn't use you were struggling to use the...
I couldn't log into my laptop because I was pressing the buttons in my head, but my fingers weren't pressing the buttons.
Oh, right. So you just weren't pressing them.
I didn't realize, and I couldn't even see it because my left vision was going.
Isn't that mad though? How your brain
Yeah.
can be like, we're pressing the buttons, and
Yeah.
you can be like, we're pressing the buttons. But physically,
to me,
you're not pressing the buttons.
yeah, to me, I was pressing those buttons and I was doing everything I
Imagine
should have
me
done.
watching you do that.
Yeah.
Imagine somebody sat next to you and being like,
That's a bit special
what
today.
the fuck else going on with him?
That's a bit special. Yeah, so that's how it all kind of started. I couldn't get into my laptop. Eventually, I got somebody to log me in, and I thought, maybe it's just me doing something wrong. Halfway through the day, I felt awful. I thought, right, I'm going to drive home. It was about an hour home in the car, so I sort of limped out to the car and I drove home. And I got back, and I said to my wife Sarah, I was like, I don't feel right. There's something really weird going on here. I'm dizzy, and I'm kind of feeling a bit like spaced out. And she said, look, you're probably just overtired. You've got the flu. You're still trying to work. Just lie down, and have the day off tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, fine.
I love that. Oh,
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I'll take that. Now, bear in mind, my wife is an A&E trained radiographer, so she's seen a lot of serious medical emergencies go off, right there and then. So she's experienced in that, and she was looking at me like I was just poorly. And because I had none of the traditional stroke symptoms, I didn't have the droopy face, I didn't have the kind of immediate paralysis, I didn't have some of the other strange stuff that you can have with a stroke. And there's lots of different symptoms. So I had kind of like mild versions of everything, and it was hard to diagnose.
yeah.
So anyway, I think the next day, we were having some windows fitted or something. It was French doors in the house.
Oh, mate, I don't miss house renovations, I tell you.
So we're in this renovation now. We've waited 2 years for these doors to be fitted, I think it was. And the guys turn up. They do this amazing job. They did a great job, fitted the doors. We finally got an actual door that isn't just a gaping hole and a piece of plywood in the
That's
back
what
of the
I had
house.
for years, mate. I had it for so long. You're like, so I remember those days. Go on, carry on.
There's a funny story that comes with the preceding bit of that. But basically, they fitted these doors, and I should have been overjoyed. And I just felt so poorly, and I didn't want to have to deal with these people. I just kind of laid on the sofa on this cold day with the air washing around the house. And I was just glad to see them go once they'd fitted it. And so there's me kind of lying on the sofa. And eventually, I tried to get off the sofa, and I couldn't. And my left leg basically wasn't like lifting and coming off the sofa. I thought, that's a bit strange. Maybe something else is going on. I mean, I've got so many injuries on my body from rugby and from skiing and from all the things I've done in my life. I've just figured I was just being a bit pathetic that day, to want of a better word. And I went to bed that night as if I was...
Fucking hell, what would it take for you to actually think you were ill? So my left leg wasn't working, but I thought maybe it's dead. Maybe I've led on my car keys.
Well, this is it. Because you don't,
I couldn't type, but
yeah.
shit happens.
Yeah. So anyway, the Saturday, basically I went to bed overnight, and in the morning I physically couldn't get out of bed. So at this point, my wife is looking at me, oh, maybe there is a real problem here. Because I was like, done, and I can't lift my leg up. She said, okay, fine. So we rang the NHS helpline, and they basically said, oh yeah, well, we want you to go to hospital. We were in the middle of a COVID lockdown, so they were really cagey about that. There were no ambulances available for, I think, 11 hours they quoted. So there's me kind of thinking, okay, right, let's get to hospital. So my wife dropped me off at hospital in my van and basically drove off with the kids because she couldn't come in because it was COVID. I'm sat in like outside. It was about 2 degrees outside maybe. So I'm sat in the corridor where they had basically no door. And yeah, essentially, oh, hello, is that me?
I don't know who it is.
It's my phone, I'm sorry.
It's all right. You crack on. I think it's
that.
So we've just had a report that Matt's been talking about a project. Yeah. Picked him up on the radio frequencies.
Matt works for an MI5, really. Oh,
you're in the corridor.
Yeah, so I'm in the corridor of Swindon.
2 degrees.
Great Western Hospital in Swindon, with a very skeptical nurse who's kind of put me in this kind of like just like a little plastic chair in the corridor and said, right, you got to take a COVID test. If you pass, then you're allowed in. If you don't pass, you have to go into quarantine. I'm thinking, oh my God. Okay.
That fucking time of life, just to put it, was absolutely mind-boggling to me now. Yeah. Looking back, I'm like, what were we all doing on times? I had how someone sat there thinking, I'm probably having a stroke. It's like, well, let's just make sure you ain't got COVID.
Yeah.
I probably realize there's a million reasons for that. They have, but it just blows my mind now that we go, yeah, that was more.
It was
an important factor than you possibly like losing all of your.
Yeah, their
neurological capabilities.
Their policy was if you could walk in there, you were okay, and if you could walk in there, then they would give you the test, and then you'd be seen and triaged, which is the normal process to go into.
So did you pass the test?
I passed my COVID test. It wasn't COVID.
Well done, you.
Yeah, thrilled.
Did you get a certificate?
Yeah, I get to stay in hospital. I went in and had the triage with various nurses. It was a Saturday afternoon, so you can imagine Saturday afternoon in a COVID lockdown. People are still playing sports. There's kids coming in with broken legs. There's a guy with a broken arm. There's a guy with who's had a fist fight in a football match. It's chaos in there Saturday afternoon in A&E. And it was probably a full moon as well. God knows what was going on. So yeah, I was kind of sat there in this little chair. There was a guy opposite me who wouldn't stop being sick. So I was just in purgatory. I really didn't want to be there anymore. I was kind of getting ready to walk out.
So they saw you, obviously.
Yeah, they triaged me.
And then what happened? Did they say like, "Hey, you are you're having a stroke"?
No, they didn't say that at all. So the nurse sees me and she sort of sits you down in the little room and you say, and she says, "What's wrong with you?" You say,
I've been in triage a few times.
Yeah. I can't really lift my arms above my head, and my left leg's a bit wonky, and I kind of feel a bit dizzy. And she says, "Okay, well, there's a few things that could be. It could be an ear infection. It could be all sorts of things." So she says, right, well, obviously we'll get you checked out. Doctor comes and sees me. He goes, yeah, I'm a bit concerned you might have a neurological problem. Didn't say stroke at that point. I thought, okay, fine. And they said, we're going to send you for some x-rays and we're going to send you for a CT scan just to double check. And I thought, okay, well, this is quite serious if they're sending me for that immediately. They pop you through. In you go. You talk to the nice lady in the X-ray room. I'm familiar with this because my wife's a radiographer, so I know the deal. So yeah, had all that CT scan done. Go and sit in a little room for half an hour, and a very nice Iranian man who was the on-call consultant came down to me and he sat in front of me just like really gently and said, "Matt, I'm really sorry, but you've had a stroke."
Wow.
And that was it.
And did it start getting worse from there? Because when I saw you at the walk, like. I remember thinking, bloody hell, like you're noticeably down here, isn't it? And you could see you were limping. And I'd met you previously at a retreat, and you were just bouncing around.
Just a few
Jack
months
the
before,
Lad.
wasn't it?
A few weeks before, yeah.
A few weeks before, yeah.
It wasn't something we did there, was it?
Almost, it was the soup in the
It was the
in the
food.
Gwilliam Centre.
Yeah, it was that room you were in.
I think it was the dry chicken and potatoes that we had for the first night.
Hey, we got a retreat coming up next week. Well, you're there.
No dry chicken.
I remember because you actually came back to the retreat and you were like, it was a big deal for you, wasn't it?
Massive.
Like, man, I've got back to a retreat. Because there must have been a time, sorry to skip by the whole,
No.
Where it was, but surely there was a time, did you ever think, because you are somebody, I've known you a while now, I've coached you.
Yeah.
I was saying this in a coffee shop, you're somebody, you do something, you do it properly.
Yeah.
You do it properly and you don't piss about with things, do you? And you're really good at lots of things. Like, you're really good at photography. You're really good at, like, obviously you're an engineer, so you're good at all that. But you're like, I'm into biking. It's not like I just go. You're like, you go biking and you're really into biking. You go camping. You're that person I look at, I imagine. I'm like, look at fucking hell, look at them over there with their camping. Like, hey, who am I kidding? I don't camp.
No.
But
5-star Carlton, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I'm pissed about camping. But you're somebody who I know who's like, you like to do things to the best of your ability. So when this happened, I remember having that little, holy fuck. What? All of a sudden you can't.
My wife laughs at me because I call myself a lazy perfectionist. You know, I struggle with doing the hard yards for making everything perfect, but I want it to be perfect. And I saw this like carpet roll out in front of me once I'd realized the true ramifications of what was happening to me. I saw this life that was going to be wholly degraded. And I wasn't by any means of the imagination kind of the fittest guy or the most intelligent guy or
You play semi-professional rugby.
Yeah.
You skied in the RAF.
I did.
You're also very self-degrading, if that's what I'm looking for. Like you will dismiss most things you've done.
Yeah.
And be like, oh yeah, I just skied in the RAF or whatever. I couldn't really ski. Well, I just did this or I just did that. What was it like looking at your life going,
the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced. And, I've been in some hairy situations, in the military and out on adventures where things have gone a bit awry and I've been scared or whatever. And I've thought, okay, I climbed up mobile phone towers for a living for a couple of years and that was quite scary at times. And none of those experiences were even remotely the same as realizing you've got a disability. And you don't know what that disability is. It's an uncalculable thing that you're just looking at and you're thinking, well, dear God, what is life going to be like? I think I told you a story this morning about seeing a very young man in the hospital when I had my stroke, who was essentially catatonic and was a 21-year-old man.
You said, yeah. I'm not laughing about that.
No,
I remember you telling me the story.
But he was, he was the first person
you saw
who I saw.
And you're like, fuck.
I thought, that guy came in here, he might have been moving. He might have been me. And for the 2 weeks I was in hospital, he didn't move, And you think, that could be me. And obviously I was extremely lucky and it wasn't.
Am I right in thinking no one really knows how it's going to go, do they?
Nope.
With this sort of thing.
So
is that what, am I right in that thinking? Because I don't like to talk about things I don't know about, just throw it out there.
No.
But I kind of looked into it a little bit before you came on. I was like, I'm pretty sure with a stroke, from my understanding, it's like, we don't know where this is really going to go.
No. There's, if you think about it, there's two ways that this really happens. A stroke essentially is a blood clot that's got into your brain, and it's what it's done is it's blocked off blood flow to a bit of your brain. However it's happened, that's what's happening at the end state. So once you have in a stroke, there's a blood clot in your brain and it's stopping the blood going where it should do. And at that point, if you catch it within the first few hours, you can basically administer a drug which will dissolve the clot extremely quickly and restore that blood flow before your brain dies. And you've got about 2-3 hours, I think, of time.
Yeah. So you've been led on the sofa for how many days?
Most of a week.
And you probably had that clot initially. Would have been the presumption?
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have built up over the week. It would have been like
it's like the surgeon who I first met was actually a Romanian lady. Really interesting. And she said, I've never seen a stroke like this. I've never seen it act so slowly. And so, or maybe it was just pure anger. I wasn't letting it get me. I don't know, but I some people it happens and straight away you're disabled.
Because you see it online, don't you? Like the symptoms. Is it face?
Yeah, face. Yeah, face.
And like act now, act quickly, but you were like, I can't move my leg. I'm in bed.
Yeah.
It's sort of built up.
So if you were that person and all of a sudden you couldn't move, you couldn't speak, you couldn't, your eye wouldn't open, and you couldn't move your leg, then you're probably having a stroke. Time to get the ambulance on the way there and then. But for me, it was completely different, and the only thing they can do is literally give you some aspirin and watch it happen.
So they literally go, right, here's some aspirin. We need to see this. Almost like, Pat, this needs to go its course.
So I go in there. They put me in a bed.
I got to ask you a question. What was that like from somebody who loves, I mean it in the nicest possible way, you like control. You like to know what's going on, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Like, that's just your character. Actually, I've realised a little bit I like control, actually. I think we all like control.
Probably control.
But I'm probably a little bit more like, people say, oh, on my gravestone, it'd be, why do today what can be done tomorrow?
Yeah.
But you're not like that, I don't think, are you? Necessarily. You're going to do things properly.
In parts, yeah.
What was it like thinking, fuck, I'm just sat led here. I suppose you've got a lad next to you who can't bloody do anything. And you're like, well, we don't know what's going to happen. I've just got to see.
Yeah, like I said, I think earlier, it's the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced.
What were you thinking? I'm sorry, mate, but I just need to get, I just want to know this. What were you thinking?
What was I thinking? I was thinking, I've got 2 little kids. It's Christmas. They've seen me go to hospital and they're never going to see me again. You thought you might die like? Oh, I thought I was dying because I went in there with like partial symptoms and then it just got worse and worse and worse. And I think it didn't help that I was so emotional. But what I didn't realize was that my brain was obviously traumatized. And I was just getting more and more wound up by the fact that I was like, things were starting to fail. So I went in there with the ability to move my arms and my legs. And then all of a sudden I couldn't. So I couldn't move my left arm, couldn't move my left leg, and I couldn't speak. And I thought, Jesus, this is it.
You were telling me about the physio.
Yeah.
That made me laugh. I know I shouldn't laugh, but you were talking about the physio. Was the physio that come to see you someone you played rugby with? Yeah.
I literally, I was in there. It was the first morning and I'd lost the use of my left arm and leg overnight. And I was absolutely terrified and I was in a funk. I didn't know what to do. And this guy walks in his blue little blue physio uniform. And I thought, hold on a minute, I know you. And it was my second row from rugby who... There's a funny story that goes with that too, because the last game of rugby we'd played, I'd basically given him a bollocking because he wasn't trying hard enough.
Right. Doesn't sound like you.
It was the game that retired me because I had an injury afterwards. And so I was laughing at him. I was like, all right, mate, nice to see you. And he looked at me and said, Wilksy, I don't know what's going on, but we're going to try and sort you out. So I asked him loads of questions. But
you did a little impression of you asking him, which made me chuckle. You were like, you were trying to speak to him.
He said, don't worry, we're going to get you moving again. So
was it nice to see a reassuring face though? Or was it the opposite? A bit like, oh, you're seeing me like this or?
No, he's a lovely guy. And I didn't feel like, oh no, I'm seeing somebody I know. I felt like, oh, I feel a bit more like in a safe space.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was highly skeptical that I was ever going to move again. And actually that the night before I'd whilst I could still speak, because I couldn't speak at that point, really. I was mumbling and my left side of my face was gone. I actually did my last will and testament on my phone because I didn't have a will at the time. The last will I'd done was in the military when I was 18. And,
God, you were really putting yourself through it.
Oh, I genuinely thought I was going to go because through the night I was losing bits of me.
Can you die from a stroke like that?
Yes, you can. Yeah, it's unusual because normally once they administer like blood thinning drugs,
you should be.
Yeah, but you can have all kinds of things happen.
I suppose even if you didn't die, if you were like, man, I can't move my left side, you had to work. You were self-employed.
I'd gone self-employed 2 weeks before my stroke. Yeah, I'd left a.
That's what did it, mate. Gets us all, I tell you.
But it was this guy called Gwilliam who recommended that I go self-employed. So.
Yeah. But I recommended that at that point.
Yeah, I think you probably had at that point, yeah.
It's like, we weren't working together then, I'm pretty sure.
Blame
Dave. Yeah, fucking Dave Watson. That's who it was.
Dave did it.
So you were self-employed, you were renovating your house, which is an endless pit of money in my experience.
Oh, it got
it's
worse
just like,
worse.
Fucking hell, got some doors in at last. Had a stroke.
Well, part of the reason for going self-employed was because I've been under such pressure from the house, from, I'd been kind of like scared of going self-employed. I didn't want to do it because I wanted the security of a job, but I couldn't earn enough money to really do the things I wanted to do. So that's what drove me to go self-employed and become a contractor essentially. And it gave me some freedom. And the first few weeks of that were like joy, because I was like, wow, I'm actually my own boss. I can decide what to do.
Great.
But yeah.
So you've done your will and testament.
Yeah.
Did your kids see you?
I had called them, I think, in the afternoon whilst I was still functional. I don't think I'd actually seen my girls. I'd spoken to my wife, but it was patchy phone signal, and it's just one of those things. And I just led in that bed thinking, right, I'm going to have to get out the last things that I can say, before I can't say them anymore. So I kind of did this video on my phone, which is still on my phone. And thanks to Apple, every year I get a reminder.
That's not a bad thing, surely.
Well, it isn't. It isn't. I've thought about deleting it, but actually I don't want to.
Why would you delete it?
Because it's so traumatic to watch, seeing this person that you used to be, because that immediate bit of a stroke, and harping on about it, but that first bit is incredibly traumatic for your brain, for your body, for your psyche. Everything about it is traumatic. And so you're like really degraded in that first few bits. And for most people, they make quite a good recovery from stroke. The prognosis is generally with medical science, they'll get you back to some use.
Brilliant.
And so, but you don't know that at that point.
Even if you knew it, you're still going to worry, ain't you?
Ah, Christ.
You're still going to worry. What if? It's the what ifs, isn't it? It's the unknown. You're looking at like the unknown.
Yeah.
And who likes that? And
as a control, not freak, but somebody who likes to have control of his life, seeing this thing happen to you is really bad. And it opens up a whole world of questions.
What did you say in that video? Do you mind me asking? Not you don't have to be too personal, but was it to your girls in that?
Yeah. I wanted to say goodbye to them because I didn't know what was going to be the outcome, for where I was where it was going to lead me.
You need to watch that video and you're like, them fucking girls. Them fucking girls. Pain in my eye when they're like 17, causing you absolute chaos. Go, oh, yeah.
Oh, they don't need to be 17 to cause you chaos.
But I reckon it gets worse.
13 and 10, my girls.
Might do it, yeah. It must have been a big strain though, mustn't it?
Yeah. There's no other way of putting it. You just sat there. You can't really do much. You're getting endlessly probed and prodded by.
What's been the biggest battle in your? I don't use the word recovery, but so I see this is a testament, to you though, because I saw you at the walk and I was like, like fucking hell. Well, that was a big difference in what I saw at the retreat. But now I said to you in a coffee shop, I'm like, I say to you sometimes on the Zoom with you, you're like, I wouldn't notice a difference. Obviously, you probably would because you're in your body. But from the outside, I'm like, mate, I wouldn't know you'd had that. Like your face, your hand. I know you were like, don't let me carry the coffees, because they're going to go everywhere. Yeah. But in general, you're like, you seem to have built up a huge more amount of mobility, and
I've had a huge amount of help from the first intensive period of time. You're in the NHS world for that. And
they're brilliant though, aren't they?
Got all credit to them. Yeah. I was looked after by the most amazing bunch of people for the first few weeks. They were all working 14-hour shifts up to Christmas in a COVID ward, covered in masks and gloves, and just an utter nightmare.
Yeah.
And every one of them, every single one of them, and huge credit to the variety of places they were from. Every part of the Commonwealth of the world was represented. You've got
to do that job I think somebody told me I had a great friend and client who was a nurse and who'd built their own, actually, funnily enough, I don't want to use the word home, but for people who have brain injuries.
Right.
Built their own in Herefordshire.
Wow.
Where you are now living.
That,
yeah. And I think, is it a vocation? Is that the word you use? Like, you don't get into nursing unless it's just in you.
You can't do the things.
You're not doing it for the money, I don't think, are you? Let's be honest. You're not going, I want the money and the hours. You've got to give a shit about people. I don't want to steal your story, but I remember being in hospital when my little girl was born. Obviously, she was born in a real weird situation, Her mum had collapsed, needed blood transfusions. And it was real scary. It was emergency.
That was terrifying.
Yeah, it was absolutely terrifying. I remember sitting there. It always gets me really emotional because the care of the people. Do you know what I mean? And this bloke, he could sort of sat there thinking, bloody hell, what are we going to do? Like, is this baby going to come out? Because it's not very happy. Is her mum going to be all right? She's fucking bleed. She's having transfusions, and they're weighing up what to do, how to stop the bleeding, but does that affect the baby? The baby was so young in there. And this bloke made me a cup of tea and brought me a couple of little chocolates. Yeah. And I just thought, he probably does that for everyone, but you think, it just made me feel so like, I don't know, like they were human.
They have an incredible power, I think.
Yeah, because you're so scared. And the ability to take that little bit of, not fear away, but the ability to kind of reassure you in who they are actually more than what they're telling you. Yeah. It was the way they were operating. And I suppose you had the NHS gets a lot of shit, doesn't it? Let's be honest.
If you've been waiting for 9 years for a hip replacement, you're going to be fed up of it. But that's not the NHS's fault.
No. When you're actually in a situation, I thought, God, I've been blown away by the level of, not service, that's the wrong word.
They'll save your life, and they've saved my life on more than one occasion.
But you're a fucking drain by the signs of it. You're putting yourself in all these positions.
A big burden.
Well, I have a word, Mark. Yeah, multiple occasions, like 4 or 5 times. I've cost the NHS hundreds of thousands of pounds.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I met my wife in an MRI machine.
Fucking hell.
She won't let me tell the story, but
all right.
I met my wife in an MRI machine after I'd had a big skiing accident.
Why can't we tell the story?
Well, mostly for GDPR reasons, but ultimately I asked her out, and it was one of those funny stories that we've told to countless couples that we've ever met. We met in an MRI machine. Basically she says that she didn't.
Most people meet at work.
Yeah. Well, she did technically meet me at work.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I came in there as a sort of fairly broken RAF guy.
I did it affect her because I want to sketch this journey. You're a fit man. You're cracking on. You're a bit of a perfectionist. You're very driven. Yeah. You're very you always driving and doing things well. All of a sudden you have this stroke over a course of a week.
Yeah.
You're now sat in a situation where you're saying, well, flipping how, like you said, the carpet laid out in front of you is uncertain. You're making a will. You're messaging your kids like fucking hell,
saying goodbye,
you're scared
essentially.
You're scared to absolute death. You're being looked after really well, and then you've got this journey to now where I said over, you came in to work with us a little bit. You'd not put the stroke to bed, I wouldn't say that, but you'd come quite far in your rehabilitation.
Yeah,
and in that last year, I've watched you absolutely smash so many things, like move. Get your house finished, like financially make big moves in your stability there. Which is a massive stress of finances.
Oh, it always has been for me, yeah.
And it is for everyone, I think, in a way. So when you've got that financial burden, it's fucking breaks you.
Yeah.
I've been there, renovating a house. You're like, fucking hell, like this is
endless, almost like endless agony, really.
Yeah, the debt of it. And anyway.
Yeah.
And so then I've watched you do that. I've watched you climb Snowdon with the Limitless lads.
Yeah,
I mean, you nearly didn't make it down.
A few months ago, yeah.
But you did that. You created a business, got great progress in your career.
Yeah.
It was huge in that space for you. Bear in mind, you just come off the back of a stroke. What was the toughest part of your rehabilitation? Mentally, forget physically, because I imagine that's tough, but what was the toughest part mentally?
So physical disability gives you I suppose, a strange perspective on life, because all of a sudden you've got this thing that's all pervasive. I can't do this, I can't do that. And so you've got 2 ways of mindsets that you could take. You could say, okay, I'm going to surrender to this and I'm just going to totally accept it. And I'm going to be zen about it. I'm not like that. You have noticed that about me. I don't accept the status quo very easily. And so I thought to myself, no, I'm not going to accept that this has happened. I accept that it's happened to me, but I'm not going to accept the ramifications. So I want to be back on my bike. I want to be climbing mountains. I want to be doing the things that I can do. And that's really the hardest bit, is not being able to do the things that are on your bucket list, I guess. And so I've taken the approach that if I can't do something, how do I find a way to do it? So, for instance, with biking, my left side's a bit weak, so I can't go and keep up with a group of people that are normally fit. So I bought myself a bike with an electric assist on it. So I can go out and, for the most part, keep up with them. In fact, a lot of the time I'm leading because I'm still putting in my amount of energy, but I'm also being assisted. It's a bit like kind of...
You're on a motorbike?
Yeah, but it's not a motorbike.
I'm joking. I know you're not on a motorbike.
Although I would like a motorbike.
I often think people in Malvern have got a lot of electric bikes because they're like overtaking me on in my car up like the steepest of hills. You're like, you must have some electric in there.
Every hill in Malvern's 20%, so you don't want to be pedaling up that.
The only person I see pedal up there is Evie Richards.
Yes.
And I remember I drove
champion,
I drove to the cafe where we have the retreat center, and I passed her up this hill. Then I had to, fair track then over to the cafe. I parked up, got out of the car, walked up the hill. She was in the fucking cafe.
Mate, she is unbelievable.
I was like, I overtook you about 5 minutes ago, like up there, and you're like, you're in the cafe, sat down.
Yeah.
That is, anyway. sorry to take away from your electric bike.
No. I mean, that's one of those things. You know, my approach to this is, if I can't do something fully myself, then if I can find an aid that will help me do it, I'll do it. And if I can't do it for whatever reason, then I've got to modify the version of it. So, for instance, when I went up Snowdon, I could have done the easy track, but I went up the hard way with the Limitless guys, and they helped me down. So the down is the much harder part for me because you need a lot of strength in your leg.
Yeah. So always looking for what you can do rather than focusing on what you can't has been massive for you.
Yeah, and that's a skill I didn't have before I joined the Unbreakable program.
I would say that's 100%. You're very much like, no, that's how I'm doing it. What about this? No, I can't accept that because you must do it properly.
Yeah,
but you've adapted that, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely.
I've seen that huge.
Yeah, I've tried to look at it that and it's just, even without disability or without any kind of major challenge in your life, you're still going to find things that you just can't do because you're either not equipped to do it or you got to learn how to do it. And I've trying to take the approach of just do as much as you can with what you've got. My wife is constantly telling me off for doing too much. But I feel a bit like the clock is ticking for me a bit.
How old are you?
I'm 48 now.
48.
Or 47.
You're looking pretty fresh though.
Somebody said I was. I only looked 40 the other day, so I'll take that.
Well, somebody said to me the other day that I wasn't old anymore, but I wasn't young anymore. So, in fact, somebody in the pub said to me that you are the oldest person I've had a conversation with today. I was like, holy fuck! Like, I'm getting old.
That's scary when the young'uns start.
The young'uns look at me like I'm a dinosaur.
Yeah, because you still feel young. I mean, I still feel like I'm 20 years old. I could take on the world.
Yeah.
The reality is not quite the same.
And then I train next to a 20-year-old in the gym, and I'm like, "This fucking you got the smart on your side there, youth."
Do you know what though? You're never too old. I remember a guy in Switzerland came into the gym I was working in when I was out on a skiing holiday, and I was in there throwing some iron around, thinking I was the big I am.
Ronnie
with a mate of mine. We were like looking at each other, going, "Yeah, we're two strong lads." And this guy came in, ski instructor, must have been 70, maybe 75. In pin perfect English, he says to me, "Are you finished on the bench?" I said, "Yeah, I am. Yeah, we just finished now." He said, "Oh, thanks, guys." We left, and I turned around, and he took my weight off and added 20 kilos each side.
He just did that while you were looking. You went out, he was like, thank God, put them tens back on.
He absolutely smashed it. And I looked at him and I thought, if I could be that strong at now, I'll be happy.
Well, you must have learned this through your journey here. People, we talk about cardiovascular health, we talk about all this stuff, don't we? The heart health and stuff. But really, quality of life is dictated hugely by your strength, your ability to be strong in old age, isn't it?
I think it's one of the biggest predictors for getting old age. Because if you want to get there, if you can't lift yourself out of your chair or your bed or whatever it might be,
you're in deep trouble. Problems. Yeah. So one of the biggest things has been able to adapt your own mentality.
Yeah, because
when you think about it, you've had to go from your default pattern of this is the way it's done, and I will find a way to, okay, how can I get this done? What can I do?
Yeah.
Must have had moments in your... I remember speaking to you a few times, you could say the frustration where you'd had a bad rehab session, you go, oh, fucking hell, the rehab. And you're like, because you went at your rehab as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I tried to do that as I'd done everything, which was like bull in a china shop. And so many very, very switched on physios and other people that assisted me with my rehab were like, Matt, you're going to have to just take this steady because you can't blunt force this problem. You're going to have to work with what you've got, be gentle with yourself, not beat yourself up for not being able to pick up the thing or.
Neurological things are cruel as well, I think. Well, all illnesses are cruel in a sense, but I'm sure they won't mind me saying my neighbours got Parkinson's and a few other things like, oh bloody hell, what is it called when you forget?
Dementia or
Dementia, I think so. Yeah. And his wife actually said, I wish you could have seen him 10 years ago. You'd have loved, you as his neighbour. Because you think, bloody hell, it's just cruel watching somebody lose their ability to perform actions and the stress it has and strain it has on the people that love you. What was it like for your wife, do you think? Does she ever talk about it? Because it's interesting. Sometimes we're just in it, aren't we? Like cracking on. You're doing your rehab. You're adapting. Like your wife must have, to watch it must be difficult.
She's an incredible woman who has the patience of a literal saint. Because to put up with me pre-stroke was bad enough. And then to take away my ability to do the things that I was doing, she's been there as a support and a physical aid. She dressed me for 6 months pretty much. I couldn't get my left leg through a pair of trousers for the first bit.
That's love, isn't it?
It is love. She's seen me at my absolute worst and lowest and still loves me, which is mad.
What was your lowest point in there? I feel. What was your lowest, apart from the initial like, oh, maybe is this going to go? I don't know. In rehab, was there any points where you just thought?
So true to myself, whilst I was relearning to walk, I fell over on a curb. I fell off a curb basically because my left side was weak and I didn't know. And my hand was in my pocket and I dislocated my shoulder, my left shoulder, which was the bad one.
I remember that.
Yeah, that was possibly the lowest 3 months of my life. And I'd been pretty low before. I'd suffered with depression for a long time because I was, like I said, a bit of a perfectionist and hadn't really reached the levels I'd want. So anyway, I had this problem with my shoulder and I was in constant pain. Couldn't move my left arm, so I couldn't do my rehab. And I was suicidal for several months.
In your rehab?
Oh, absolutely. I was simultaneously desperate to get better, but just wanted that pain to be gone. And I was on a TENS machine for about 14 hours a day on average. I didn't sleep for about 120 days.
I think this is a big thing in society in general. Chronic pain it's so mentally debilitating, isn't it, for many people? You think someone dealing with chronic pain every day, you get to a point where I've spoken to people in this situation where I just don't want this.
I don't want this anymore.
Yeah. And there's no way out. I think it's when there's no way out, I think
for me as well, the NHS way of treating this is, right, here's some painkillers and off you go. And for me, it was essentially I had a frozen shoulder, which is, if you've ever had it, it is something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. And so they give you the pills. You don't realize what they're doing. They're doing something, but you're not sure. And then, unfortunately, I did get addicted. I was on this slow release ketamine.
Oh my God.
Because it was the only thing that was taking me. I mean, I would be in tears during the day.
This was during the stroke stuff as well.
Yeah, I'm still rehabbing from stroke. I've got my crazy Brazilian physiotherapist coming in and bending my arm backwards and taking me to the point of unconsciousness every day, and it's just staggering, really, what I've been through.
Yeah. But did you get addicted to it?
Yeah, I didn't realize it, but I was taking this ketamine, and I'd never had it before in my life. And when I stopped, I ran out basically over a bank holiday weekend, and I went through withdrawal.
Yes.
What an experience.
What an experience for most people. I've spoken to someone on this. Yeah. I had a minor thing of that with steroids.
Yeah.
I was on steroids, 4 months? And it turned me into a different person in those 4 months. Yeah. I could not believe how depressed I felt, how low I felt, how angry I felt. And I was like, there's got to be something like going on. And it was like the 30 milligrams of flipping steroid I was on every day. Yeah. It was like, I think you're having all the side effects. But then you can't just come off these things. You have to kind of...
the tapering and all that. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize you're supposed to taper off of ketamine. So I ran out and I went through the full withdrawal. So
I can't imagine you'd be a taperer anyway. You'd be like, fuck it.
Well, yeah, it would be fuck it and just do it.
I'm just not doing it. I'll grit it out.
And I've done that in the past and it doesn't work, but this was really bad.
So you're going through the depression and all that.
Yeah. And it took me all of those, I suppose, the weight of everything. And I was still having to work and provide for the family because, at that point, my wife is my full-time carer. So she can't work. I've got 2 kids going through their traumas. They're trying to adapt to the new version of me. My wife's adapting to the new version of me and, putting up with my kind of trials and tribulations.
Did it change you mentally at all?
I think it did, yeah.
I'm not saying it did. I'm just saying I just wondered because you sometimes when things happen to somebody's brain, your personality can sometimes shift.
I think what it's done, it's exacerbated some of the things that I was perhaps prone to. So, for instance, I've never been necessarily that relaxed a person. So I'm probably a high stress character anyway.
Yeah.
And it's made me a bit more towards that and a little bit quicker to anger and a little bit quicker to temper, but probably quicker to recover as well.
Yeah, much more fiery.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I was pretty fiery before, fairly aggressive character, being an ex-rugby player and, just being a military man and whatnot. So,
yeah,
I'm probably a bit less passive than I would have been. Probably can't deal with, when you're kind of following somebody slow in a queue.
Yeah, you're in a hurry, aren't you?
I feel like everything's like almost accelerating. It's a strange.
Has it made you more empathetic at all?
Yes, I think it has. I mean, I am generally quite an empathetic person. I always was the person that, I would support somebody. I'm not, I always feel like a team guy. Never really been a loner.
No, but you have had a lot. You've openly said you had a lot of support with this, haven't you?
Massive amount of support. So
did you ever feel like, did it surprise you how much support you got? Or was it frustrating? Because again, I think sometimes I can be the type of individual who's like, no, I'll get this sorted. I'll crack on my own and I'll just get it done. That's my default.
Same here, really.
I'll crack on and get this done. I don't need anyone to help me with this. I can get it done.
Yeah.
I'm very not always the one to go, hang on a minute, I could do with some help here.
I don't generally call for help without there being a real need. I was very sort of like the first few months of you're in that trauma zone. You don't really know what you're doing, and you're just sort of led there and trying to figure it all out. And then a friend of mine who was associated with the Royal British Legion as he was one of their kind of helpers. He said, "Oh, you need to talk to this guy that I know who's the local lead guy. Give him a call and see what the British Legion can do for you." And so I rang them and had a conversation, and they weren't really set up for my kind of case. I was in an odd position where I had no kitchen. I'm living in a house, I'm disabled, I've got no kitchen, I've got no downstairs bathroom, and I can't climb the stairs to go to a loo. So there's some challenge here. So I go around the houses with a couple of different agencies and eventually settled upon the RAF Association. So as an ex-RAF veteran of 9 years, and you don't have to have served any more than a day. So if you've served a day in the military in the RAF, you can be assisted by these charities. And so the RAF Association took me under their wing for a good few months, and they paid for my bathroom to be fitted so that it was disabled access.
Why? They
helped me do things in the kitchen so that we actually had a kitchen to be able to eat properly and clean the dishes and whatnot. They basically they kind of helped overcome some real challenge that were urgent and needed to be done. So they helped me loads, and they kept us afloat for a few months. Really
brilliant. The rehab, was that all private, or did you get?
Yeah, that's a strange one. And one of the things that probably I'd love to be able to change, if I ever took on a charity type of a thing, it would be this, maybe for young stroke, because for young stroke, the NHS is set up for old people stroke.
Yeah.
They're set up for, you've had a stroke, something happens to you, you're old, and so you end up in that kind of care loop. And people my age, that they're not very well catered for.
Yeah.
They don't have the capacity to give you a physiotherapist full-time, occupational therapist full-time. You only get a very short amount of assistance.
Yeah, they kind of get you back up and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've had some mental health assistance through a couple of different agencies through the RAF and through Help for Heroes. I had various kind of like therapies that I've been helped with. Help for Heroes actually managed to get me 4 months of intensive.
I remember you going through that intense physio.
Wow, yeah. I went down to Salisbury Hospital, and a lady called Fiona, who looked after me.
Good old
Fiona.
I remember her. I'm sure.
Scares the living hell out of me.
Smashing the hell out of you every Friday. Sounds a bit not in that way, may I add.
No.
But I remember you were like rehabbing, weren't you?
The ladies in that rehab unit are incredible.
You weren't like doing the odd little bit here and there. You were like, I remember speaking to you after. You're like, what the fuck you been doing?
Like they got a specialist unit that was formed after the World War II for downed pilots. So it was the RAF basically gave them like loads of rehab stuff, like a full workshop. So you can go to this place and they will get you making glass and cutting steel and making like pallet wood kind of projects. Is that because
it's important to get that finer motor skills? And that back?
Because to be able to reuse how to learn a limb, you can do it the kind of, grip strength type of way and go to the gym, but you can only do so much. But I'll tell you what, if you try and take a pallet apart with the hand that doesn't work, with a maul and
taking a pallet apart,
yeah,
it's fucking hard work anyway. I had to do that this weekend. Right, I had a load of bloody patio slabs delivered in this, not
great big crate.
Crate, right? Yeah. Ironically, most of the patio slabs came broke. The fucking crate's impossible to break. I've been out there all weekend trying to chop it up.
Particularly strong.
Saws. You're like, what's going on here?
Nah, I mean, like it's a fascinating thing. You kind of go to a hospital setting and you think, oh, I'm going to be
you can have a cup of tea,
rubber bands, cup of tea, maybe a biscuit,
a bit of biscuit at the end.
I might do a little bit of yoga. No. The first thing they get me doing is the thing that haunts me today, which is here's a pillowcase.
Oh, I remember the pillowcase. Yeah,
you're not allowed to use your good hand. You have to use your bad hand that barely works to manipulate this pillowcase. You got to like turn it inside out. You got to fold it in half. You got to fold it. You got to like undo it. Then you got to turn it on back.
Is the hardest part of that mental frustration?
Oh.
I can't imagine how frustrating it must be to go, okay, something you take for granted that I could grab that pillowcase.
And just
there's not a pillowcase there, by the way.
No.
But I could grab this pillowcase and I could do what the fuck I wanted with it.
Yeah,
within reason. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to be like on holiday and like make a swan out of it.
Oh, you can make some incredible things out of it. Yeah.
But I could fold it up. So you could do that. And then all of a sudden you go in.
Oh, it's
surely most people, it must be a huge percentage of people who just go, you know what? Fuck it. This is me.
Yeah.
I just can't do these things.
Yeah. Now, and I went in there with this, I didn't know what I was going to face. I knew it was a specialist rehab unit and I knew they were going to push me hard. And they told me that straight away. They said, look, this is going to be intensive. Most people go there every day or they stay there. You can stay there for residential. I never did that because I was able to go there physically.
Shit.
But you basically, like they would get you doing these things and I'd be like, I'd be threading a needle or trying to like kind of create those little like rope bracelets that you can make.
Yeah.
Or they would have you and everything else in between, lifting up like the broom handle exercises. If you pick up a broom handle with your weakest hand and manipulate it and move it around, you'll soon find out how weak your hand is. And they're doing that constantly.
That's brilliant.
What was most humbling about that experience is not just the difficulty I faced, but I'm in there with people who have what I call real injuries. There was a lady, I remember, she was fantastic. She had been mauled by a dog. She had basically had her hand severed by a dog. They'd sewn it back on again, essentially. And this woman was there next to me doing the pillowcase exercises. There's a guy who's had his arm amputated. He's there like kind of using his other hand. He's got challenges left, right and center. There's people, hugely challenged in there with you. It's a real mixed bunch. And just meeting them people, you realise, oh, actually, I'm not even on the scale of disability here. I'm a lucky guy. I
think this is one of my big things about what I always say, like, we work with real people, we're real people. And there's people around. I probably say it's every podcast at some point, but I say it in every academy live I do. It's like, you look at people in the social media world and you hold them up. People hold them up on pedestals. And there's nothing wrong with that. of these inspirational things, you know, especially younger people, they get bought into this online world where somebody's always on the beach and getting the perfect pictures. What an inspirational character. Or
Influencers.
Somebody's ran around the world for charity. Isn't that inspirational? And it is.
Yeah.
But then you've got that lady who's had her hand mauled and she's having to piece her fucking mobility back together. Or yourself who's had a stroke. And then you're like thinking, how's my life going to pan out? But you've attacked it. You've got after it. You've made the best of it. And you're not on social media talking about it. It's just your life. Now that to me is inspirational.
Yeah.
And like I said, when I was in the hospital, I'd look at people in the baby unit who got babies like 1.5 pounds or something, and they're in there feeding them and going through this, you know, the people working in there, like, man, this is
so
really
hard.
Inspirational stuff. How you're approaching this and dealing with this. That to me is inspirational. Not because you haven't chosen to take on that challenge. You didn't go, well, fuck it, let's just lose all my mobility in my arm, right?
No.
And then I'll put it back and that'll inspire people. You've just gone off. Shit, life's life to me.
Yeah.
I didn't ask for this. And now you're having to piece your life back together.
Yeah.
And you're doing it.
And it's not linear. You have your huge trials and tribulations. You have moments of real joy. You know, my first bike ride back on my bike, I've got the video on my phone, and it's my daughter was filming. I said, right, I'm going to get out on my bike and I'm going to try and ride it in the garden. And she said, oh, come on then, Daddy, let's go and do it. And she was, you know, she's appears so little 3 years ago. She was 7. And she was filming me, and I kind of rode up and down the road and I thought, wow, I'm back on my bike. You know, it was a cold day, and I just thought, you know what, I feel free again.
You've always told me, here's something, and I think this is crucial. You've struggled to feel grateful on times. You used to say that to me all the time. I struggle to feel grateful.
Yeah.
But if you look at gratitude, really, gratitude is, I was talking to somebody about this week, it's going back. People are like, oh, look at my house. Oh, yeah, I'm great. I need to be grateful for this, or my partner, or my kids. But when you go back to when you never had that in your life, so you connect the dot, here's the thing I have. Here's when it was just a dream or a hope.
Yeah.
Or something I was trying to make happen. When you go back to the point of inception of it, you'll experience huge gratitude. It's like if you lost everything in your life right now and then regained it, how grateful would you be if you woke up the next day and it was all back there? You'd be extremely grateful.
You would.
But that's kind of what you described there, isn't it? You probably just jumped on your bike. We take it for granted. That's not because we're bad people. We take it for granted. I jump on my bike. I go on my bike ride. It's great. All of a sudden you can't. And then when you can again, how good did that feel?
It felt amazing. And even though it was 2-3 minutes maybe of what was a very challenging.
And you had your stabilizers on.
Yeah. Obviously.
Yeah, of course.
And I fell off 5 times, but I'd never really understood gratitude. I didn't know about it as
I love that. What is this gratitude stuff you speak of?
No, it sounds like a really stupid thing to say, but actually I just didn't understand it. And I won't say I'm even remotely where I want to be in terms of feeling grateful for the things that I have. I saw somebody say the other day that for them, gratitude felt like almost like a mild sense of relief. And it's an odd thing. And I kind of feel the same. I've always really struggled with gratitude. And maybe it's because I was quite privileged. I've never really had, I didn't have a particularly challenging childhood or anything. There's no like major backstory that says, oh, this guy, grew up in a sort of a, dustbin in Glasgow.
Nice place to grow up.
you know what I mean?
Well, I'm not sure why you chose Glasgow.
Yeah. Well, have you ever been there?
Hey, Glaswegians love this show.
I love the Glaswegians. They're a lovely bunch of people. But no, it's not so much that. I didn't have that difficult challenge like in my previous life. But
I think people struggle. We all struggle to understand what is gratitude. What is it? Is it a sense of just feeling good about what you have, a sense of like, oh God, aren't I lucky? What is it? It is hard. People can describe it in textbooks in different ways, but it's like, it must be different to everyone.
Oh, I'm sure.
In a sense, but surely it's just feeling good.
But in the sense of, having something taken away from you and then you regain some element of it, that there is an immense feeling of gratitude at that. I maybe don't display it all the time, and I often catch myself being ungrateful. And because I've learned through the academy and through other bits and pieces with yourselves and with through my start with Dave in Limitless, I've always, it was the first time I'd really been taught, if you can use that word, to notice those things. You know, you don't notice them when you're kind of just living your life at 100 miles an hour, and every little thing is just the next thing to do.
Yeah, I think that's the trouble. We're always striving and not taking stock. But we sometimes think we have to strive. We think they have to exist. They can only exist on their own. Mm-hmm. You're either striving or you're appreciating what you've got. So he's like, okay, don't strive then, just appreciate. It's like, well, no, don't do that. It's like, no, but if I appreciate, I'll stop striving. It's like, it's the both. It's like, you know, happy and hungry, all that kind of cliched stuff. Yeah. I'm happy, but I'm hungry. Or, you know, I have a nice appreciation for what I have, but, you know, kind of a desire and curiosity to build and grow that. But I think very often we're just more. That's our society sometimes.
And it's easy to get sucked into that, I want more and more and more. And that is one of the balances of my life now is I do want more and more. I want to go and do the adventures I had in my head before I got unwell. I want to do things that I would never have even dreamed of doing before I got unwell because it's opened my eyes to some of those things.
And is it adapting them sometimes? Have you got more comfortable with adapting? I'm trying to think what it is. It's that single-mindedness, that drive that sometimes this isn't going to pan out how I want it to. Can I adapt? That's what you've talking about. You've had to really embrace, haven't you? The ability to adapt and overcome, as Ben would say, adapt and overcome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an ex-helicopter engineer and, you know, aircraft engineer, and I was always a hands-on guy. And now to take the wheel out of my bike is a physical and mental challenge. And oftentimes I will get very frustrated with it because in the past I would have just used my left hand and it would have been fine. And now I have to like adapt it. I've got like a bungee to hold something up, or I've got to do something else. And it's so frustrating at times. And, you know, but what happens inside is that you get frustrated, and I'm probably at times when I'm maybe stressed or overtired, then I'll react more to those kind of frustrations than I would normally. But I'm still adapting. I'm still doing them.
I think this is the whole point of this episode. One of the things I was trying to just needle in and get out of you a little bit and more is like, I wanted to know what it was like and where you're at. But I suppose I could see you wrestling mentally with it. The rehab was as much mental, isn't it, in your mindset as it is physically. I speak to people every week, and that's no disrespect to anyone who are like, you know, I really want this.
Yeah.
But, you know, I kind of want to do it my way and on my time and on when I feel like it. And I haven't, you know, I want that, but I can't do this, or I can't find the time, or, you know, can I come on your masterclass? Yeah, no, where is his? And I can't. Oh, you know, actually, I'm letting the dog out at 8:30. Oh, never mind, I can't come. It's like, yeah, you could. You've got to make time. You've got to find a way to make things happen, or they don't fucking happen.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's what you've done, isn't it? You found ways to adapt and make it work in some level.
Before probably meeting you guys, I would have hit a roadblock and gone, okay, right. If it was really important to me, I might have persevered, but most of the time I would have just gone, okay, fine. I didn't become a pilot, off I go,
But if you really want to be a pilot, you keep finding a way, don't you? You keep
I think
keep showing up.
I think what I've learned now is that the things that have become important to me, I will strive for, and the rest of it has gone away. So I feel less inclined to think about things that weren't important to me. You know, before I would have thought about everything. I was quite a broad kind of thinker. And I think now I look at the things I want to do. You know, I've got things I want to do on my bike. I've got things I want to do physically, like, you know, mountains and, you know, all that good stuff.
What can I do?
Yeah,
I think it's the best question. So what can I do?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't do that. What can you do? What can you do?
Yeah.
I can't. How can you? How can you do something? Like, it's just that if you ask yourself those questions, you know, it opens up possibilities, doesn't it? It's not easy to do that because sometimes you're just so depressed and low and in a funk, you just can't see beyond that. But there's always, I'm never going to stop believing there's always something
And once you get the mindset change, once you get that somebody, I mean, it was you guys and sort of turning that story on its head a little bit inside my head, where, you know, if I had a challenge I wasn't sure about, instead of just giving up on it, I then developed this little bit of a curiosity, which I never really probably had. And the curiosity led me to then go, right, well, okay, if I can't do that now, how do I do it in the future? Do I keep it as a goal? Do I get rid of it? How do I do it? You know,
my brother always said to me once, he was trying to get me to play football for him actually, but you know, if it's important, you find a way. If it's not, you find an excuse. Now he was trying to manipulate me to play football for him. But it is true. But also sometimes you just got to think, well, maybe I will say it's the difference between can't and won't. We often say I can't, but actually usually it's no, I just don't want to.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Being honest about
that's
that.
just fine. But there's such a different shift in your energy when you say, oh, I can. It's like, you could. No, I can't. Well, you could, couldn't you? Yeah, but I don't want to. Well, there you are. Say that.
Want and won't are different, aren't they?
Yeah. Like you won't do it, and that's fine. Or you don't want to do it. That's fine. Just hold your hand up and say, not interested. It's not important to me. But can't is it's the end, isn't it?
Yeah. You just say, no, that's it.
I can't. Oh, I can't do that. Okay, move on. It's like the bullet. It's like the bullet point. It's like the full stop at the end, as opposed to, how can I?
And I have been guilty of that. Like I think we all have of being an absolutist where, no, I can't do that. I'm too big. I'm too little. I'm too weak. I'm too strong. Whatever it is.
You're not too little, are you?
Well, I was never too little for anything, but.
And you know, I get that a lot. But anything though, oh, I'm anxious. Well, you know, oh, you can't live without anxiety. So of course you can. Well, technically you're going to experience anxiety, but you got living with it as a debilitating daily driving your.
You don't have to live like that.
Like this, take about 50 people a month away from that. Like, you know, the same situations as you. It's like, but when we believe we can't, it stops all thinking. Imagine if they just flew some stuff up in the sky and just went, yeah, we just can't fly, can we? Nah, fucking can't, can we? Nah.
No, that's the end of that then.
Anyway, let's move on. Let's just we'd be like, none of us be flying. What were you going to say? You watched what?
I watched one of your, I think it was a masterclass that you sent me the other day, and it was talking about beliefs. And I still, to this day, I still question my what I believe, you know, and I'm constantly asking that question of myself. Do I believe that, or am I just saying it to myself? You know, do I genuinely believe I can't do that, or is it not true?
Yeah, it's crazy when you start highlighting your own beliefs. We'll just put them I think belief work, we'll get into it in another episode, but belief work's very, people get all personal development when they talk about beliefs.
Yeah.
So it's all of a sudden it's all I believe I'm not enough. Nobody really walks around going, oh, I'm not enough. It sounds completely different to that. It sounds really logical on times, doesn't it? Well, you're an engineer. Logic's got to be a big part of engineering.
Yeah, it's a big part of it. Yeah.
So you can probably logic away everything in your life.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's why a lot of companies fail, because if you're an engineer and they put you in a sales position, you logic yourself out of the success.
Yeah.
You find a reason to not do that thing.
Yeah.
And we really, as engineers, have to be careful about that.
Yeah, I'd say logic kills just as many dreams as it does.
Yeah.
Like helps. Logic's great when you've figured out but I notice people out logic themselves out of everything, and usually it's fear. Mm-hmm. We experience fear, and then we start using logic to back our fears up, our doubts up, our insecurities up. We can talk about beliefs. I'd love to talk about beliefs because it must have challenged your beliefs about yourself having a stroke,
massively so,
and your self view as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was a pragmatic person, I suppose, bit of a kind of a pessimist, you know, and that pessimism probably pervaded more of my life than it really should have, and that's why I sought out Limitless and Unbreakable.
Yeah, all those things. And surely pessimism's part of being an engineer. Do you have to do you have to figure out how shit's going to break? I don't know. I'm not an engineer.
Yeah, I mean, I think it takes a logical mind, and then you get taught as an engineer for the most part. Depends which route you go, but most of them teach you to question everything. So if you see something, question it. Now, the problem with that is that it can rob you of joy.
Yeah.
Because you can look at something that's like, you know, you can look at a beautiful flower, and the first thing you see on it is that one of the leaves has got a bit of rot on it. Oh, that flower's going to be dead in a week.
But I believe that to be true about personal development. No, I 100% believe that to be true about personal development. I 100% believe it to be true about social media's narrative of personal development. People watch 30-second clips now and like take a little bit of insight from it, and they question everything. This is big in personality types. It's like, are they a narcissist? Are they oh God, I noticed a little narcissistic tendency in them, because they're questioning everyone's behaviors, intentions. And it's like, fuck me, life's going to be hard.
Yeah.
If you're questioning your thoughts and your feelings and your things and the actions of them, and you're breaking down the possible motives to everything, all because you watch some, fucking person for 30 seconds give you the top 5 signs that somebody is an asshole.
That you're burnt out.
Oh, that you're burnt out. It's like, oh my God, I'm looking at everything through this lens now.
Yeah.
It's like, I believe, you're talking about beliefs. I just believe that social media has a lot to answer for. Not in, people are pervading their great lives on there. Actually, just snippets of content that people absorb and then think they're an expert on that topic.
Yeah. And it
sounds like a rant, but and I realize I'm putting content out and I'm doing stuff, but I have this in my head. I never try and leave too many open loops in a bit of content, which is why I'll write more long form. It's like, no, I want to get to a point, like not just here's 5 reasons that you're an anxious person. Your life's going to implode this year.
It's not, look at me, I'm great, I'm in Dubai,
Fuck Dubai.
Yeah. Been there.
Look at me. I'm in Malvern. In fact, don't look at me at all.
If I had the choice, I'd choose Malvern over Dubai. That's a fact.
Yeah, you're not far up the road, are you?
No.
So to wrap this up, because we've been 45 minutes plus 30.
Right.
Which I blame you. I blame you for everything. But your journey's been massive, hasn't it? But it's been one, I think, from the outside, of mental transformation. I don't mean that neurologically. I just mean in the way you view. I've watched you become much more flexible. Through no work of mine, by the way. Just you dealing with this situation has forced you to become much more flexible in your thinking. You've started to give yourself a bit of a break, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to squint when I say maybe.
Well, there you are, not giving yourself a break. Yeah. But you've become a little bit more, like you said, you're finding a way. How can I not? I can't do that. That's how it should be done.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. And beating myself up about it because I can't perform to my perfect expectation
level. Yeah.
You're like, no, I'm gonna. And I think that's anyone in a tough situation. We think we need the perfect time, the perfect plan, everything's got to be done a certain way. We've just got to find ways.
So much better to just start
and find a way.
I was thinking that this very morning. I've got a real challenge at work at the moment, and I could easily run away from it, wait for the perfect scenario. But no, I'm going to just fire my way through this, and I'm not going to worry about the outcome until it's one way or the other. Because, like you say, whatever you imagine is just imagination until it's a fact. I try not to act on it too much.
And we all do it. Like you said, the initial thing, you're laying out your life in front of you where you weren't here, you couldn't speak, you couldn't do this because you didn't know. We all look into the unknown and map this terrain, don't we?
Yeah.
But really all we've got is the data in front of us right now. Nothing wrong with it. I don't think it's wrong with going to the future. I think it's great. Go create what's possible. But if you live there, it's a fucking horrible place. Yeah. On times. In 2 ways, you can live there in this fanciful, there's a lot of people living in this fanciful future. You're like, you need to get a dose of reality, mate. Like shit's not backing up. Get in the now. But also we can live in the fearful future where we're just creating these painful scenarios.
Yeah. And I think, Unbreakable taught me, I'd never really understood what a vision was. I'd never understood what a mission statement was. I never understood why I should have a mission.
Yeah.
And it taught me that. So if nothing
and your
else,
mission changed, didn't it?
Yeah, it's had to. It's adapted and it's moved and it's gone from one thing to another thing. And then, it's actually much more wholesome than it ever was.
What would you say to somebody, just quickly, if you had to finish up, somebody who's like, shit, life is just life me? Because it can be a disability, it can be anything. It can be some kind of loss, can't it? It can be like, okay, I've just lost my job. Fucking hell, like, this is just falling apart on me. What would you say from your experience the last few years of dealing with that?
I know it's an overused trope, but it will pass. That whatever that is going to pass. And there's things you can do to help yourself. First thing you should be doing, if you can, ask for help. And if you're not getting that help, keep asking and don't take no for an answer. If you need that help and you know in your heart that you need it, try to find a way. because there's always someone that will help you, even if it's in the smallest way. And I think that is a lesson for everybody. If you're getting yourself in a real pickle, reach out. If you're a military guy, military charities. If you're if you're almost any part of society, there's some mechanism that will give you some help. If you're suicidal, there's people to talk to. If you're kind of like worried and anxious, there's people you can talk to. Go and do some therapy. Start a process like Meeting Unbreakable and come and join the academy and learn how to control your emotions better and how to understand your own.
So it's just get help, isn't it? And you had loads. Like first thing. Second thing is find a way. That's the thing I'm finding in this. It's like you find a way. I'm going to have to find a way. I'm going to have to find a way. Because sometimes we do want the way to come to us, but we have to show a bit of willing to find the way as well, don't we?
If you don't take responsibility for whatever's happened to you or is happening, for you, because a lot of the time what you feel like is happening to you is actually happening for you. I actually think after all of this, after the last few years of real challenge, that it's the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Really?
Yeah.
You genuinely believe that?
I do.
I'm not questioning that. I'm asking. Do you genuinely believe that?
In my heart, I think about it and I say, where was I going if I hadn't had this happen to me? Would I be in the same place, in terms of acceptance? Probably not, because I never had enough challenge for me to really realize what was worth fighting for, I suppose. So it's quite, you got to take something out of it.
Mate, what you just said. I never had enough challenge to realize what was worth fighting for. No. Did it put things in perspective?
Yeah, no, I could easily now say, oh yeah, I'm just like, I'm a guru of calm and zen and.
But I'd know you were lying.
Absolute bollocks, isn't it? Really, So no, I think it does bring what's important to you. For me, it's my kids, my family. But
you've done a lot since then. You moved, didn't you, and stuff? Or as we were finishing up, but is that where the moving and stuff came from? Let's try and find a bit of a better place.
Some of these things are forced upon you. So I had a huge financial challenge. I was self-employed. I had no income. I had no insurances. I was like. I had 2 mortgages to pay. I had half a house fixed. So I had to make some real decisions, big. And, I remember having conversations with you where I was really shitting myself thinking, I'm kind of done here. I think we could be bankrupt. We could be losing our home. We could be living in a caravan in the bottom of a field. Those things were real. And I was able to navigate all of that because I had some capacity from the stuff I've learned.
The stuff you were doing. And also, God, I keep saying we're going to finish up, but you made decisions because you had to make decisions. That's the biggest thing I see, actually. I talk about this a lot now, is make decisions, make the important decisions. You usually know the answer. We do a lot of looking for information. Make the decision, because when you make that decision, it may not be the right answer. But you don't know. But then you have another set of decisions you can make based on the feedback that comes back. I remember talking to you, it was like, you just need to make these decisions, wasn't it? It was like, you pulled the trigger and you kept having all these knockbacks, but you kept making decisions. So you were moving.
Yeah.
Whereas when you don't make a decision, nothing changes. It's like me just going, well, I don't know what to do here. I'm just staring at this gray wall. But if I make a decision where I'm going to go, I have a new set of possibilities to look at.
Yep.
And you have to make decisions. It's one of the biggest things I keep talking about all the time lately. Fucking make decisions.
Make them, live with them.
Yeah, make them effectively, quickly. The quicker the quicker we make decisions, the quicker we make progress.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what happened there. But like you said, sometimes you don't make decisions until your fucking ass is on fire. Oh my God!
Yeah.
So I better make that decision now. Why? Because I got to do something. I got to move. But it's a bit of a lesson, isn't it? I think you ultimately. So get help, ask for help, keep asking,
get the skills,
get some skills, find a way. And that's the way out of these places.
Absolutely.
Mate, I love it. It's been emotional.
Awesome, mate.
I'm now going to eat my nuts, drink my cold coffee, have a little break, and we'll come back. But no, I appreciate you sharing your story, my man. Thanks, right, folks, we're out of here. And we'll catch you next week.